This is a moment of truth for us who have lived here in this country through a year of adversity, through a year of hate, through a year of challenge.
Keeping the dream alive, San Diego's tribute to a civil rights icon and a new call to action for the next generation of leaders. Defying the law, a tipping point in the debate to feed homeless in El Cajon and the plan to fight the food ban in court.
It's already created quite a few problems as far as the spiking of salinity, localized dust storms, and losing likely millions of animals already.
The shrinking Salton Sea and the major public health concerns for people who live next to it. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Susan Murphy. A group of people defying the city of El Cajon's food sharing ban say they are getting ready for legal action. This after multiple people were arrested over the weekend while trying to feed the homeless. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has more.
By directly confronting and defying the law is nothing compared to their everyday discomfort of trying to survive.
The ordinance passed last October bans food sharing events on city property.
Break the ban here in Wells Park.
A group calling themselves Break the Ban has been meeting to defy the law at city parks, and on Sunday, that reached the tipping point.
You guys are subject to arrest.
12 people were arrested and cited for misdemeanors at Wells Park.
I'm under arrest, but it's on a piece of paper.
At a news conference Monday, the group promised to fight the arrest and take legal action against the city of El Cajon.
It's okay to give food in public to other people, but not homeless people. That's an unfair way of targeting the alleged issue of hepatitis A.
The city says groups feeding the homeless in El Cajon do not operate under regulations that control how food is prepared, stored, and served.
Why do we have to get a food handler's permit to serve food in the park to homeless people, but you don't have to get a food handler's permit to have a party for 50 people?
The ordinance does make exceptions for social gatherings, including parties and celebrations. But the community group says they are not looking for loopholes.
We do a disservice to the homeless people if we say we're having a birthday party so we don't get in trouble because we're afraid to get in trouble.
Lawyers representing the group say they plan to file injunctions to have the arrests overturned, as well as file a civil suit against the city. Despite the ordinance, Break the Ban organizers say they plan to continue serving the homeless. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Today, San Diego joined the nation in honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It started Sunday with marching bands at the San Diego Harbor. This parade is one of the largest celebrations in the nation dedicated to the civil rights leader. Organizers say thousands came to watch. The fraternity that organized the parade counted King as one of its members. The oldest son of Martin Luther King Jr. weaved his father's message into today's issues during a fiery speech in Washington, D.C. Speaking during an event for the National Action Network, Martin Luther King III touched on disenfranchisement, the Me Too movement, and the recent comments by President Donald Trump on immigrants from Haiti and African nations.
We are here today because the American dream is decidedly a nightmare for too many citizens, and people have had enough. Let me say it again. The dream has become a nightmare for too many American citizens on the left and the right, and they've had enough. They've had enough of the viciousness and the vitriol seen from the State House to the White House. And it's tragic that we, as a society, have mistreated women for so long. It's always been unacceptable. But who would have ever thought that just 6 months ago that this would take a trajectory, this movement? This is a movement for righteousness, a movement for justice, a movement for fairness, a movement for truth. And a president insists that our nation needs more citizens from white states like Norway. I don't even think we need to spend any time even talking about what it says and what it is. Now, the problem is that you have a president who says things but has the power to execute and create racism That's a dangerous power and a dangerous position. And we cannot tolerate that.
President Trump denies that he used a vulgar term when describing immigrants from Haiti and some nations in Africa during a private White House meeting. Hundreds of business leaders, civil rights advocates, and community members poured into Balboa Park this morning to pay tribute to Martin Luther King Jr. with the 30th All People's Celebration and luncheon.
I have a dream that there will be peace in the world and not war.
I have a dream that one day the whole world will have clean water.
I have a dream that we can remove poverty globally.
It was a day of reflection.
These are very difficult and challenging times.
And a call to action.
You have to figure out if there's evil in the world and do something about it.
Through tributes.
How we don't have to condemn a whole class of people based on the actions of some. Do you see it? How all the names are different. How all the faces are different.
Performances. And advocacy. Remembering an iconic leader who fought for equality and justice for all, who used his thunderous voice to deliver some of the most influential speeches in American history.
I have a dream that my poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Attendees, inspired by King Jr.'s words, recited their own dreams.
I have a dream that peace and justice will prevail throughout the whole world. We all live in peace and harmony.
I have a dream that one day we will all be free from oppressive systems that hold us down and hold us back from fulfilling our full human capacity and potential.
It was the 30th consecutive year of the All People's Celebration.
Buenos días.
But organizer Andrea Guerrero with Alliance San Diego says this year's tone was different after a troubling year when neo-Nazis marched through the streets of Charlottesville and the President of the United States accused of racism.
This is a moment of truth for us who have lived here in this country through a year of adversity, through a year of hate, through a year of challenge.
Guerrero is hoping the event inspires people to stand together with renewed momentum.
Fight fiercely, love fiercely.
She and her team plan to use their momentum to fight for immigration rights for Dreamers this week in Washington, ahead of a DACA government funding deadline on January 19th.
And we will be meeting with legislators, and we will be participating in advocacy events, activist events.
And following in the footsteps of Martin Luther King Jr., who dedicated his life to advocacy and urging love and compassion for all humanity.
I have a dream that one day we can all live in peace and harmony.
The keynote speaker of the event was Eva Patterson. She's the founder and chair of the California Civil Rights Coalition. The event drew 1,000 attendees, including more than a dozen Democratic and Republican politicians. Applications to San Diego State have surged in recent years, but the number of acceptance letters has not. KPBS education reporter Megan Burks says that's one reason California State University faculty are calling on the governor to offer the system more in his revised budget.
Governor Jerry Brown proposed a 3% increase to higher education spending. For the CSU, that means less than a third of what administrators asked for and about a fifth of what the faculty union would like to see. It says the system is having to turn away too many qualified students under the current budget. SDSU turned away about 90% of applicants last fall.
What that means is that there are a lot of particularly local area students who are qualified. They have met all the requirements for admission to San Diego State, and they're not getting in.
Brown has been critical of administrative spending and tuition hikes at the state's public universities. Brown's budget could be a bargaining chip as they consider another tuition increase in the spring. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
The city of Oceanside continues to function without a mayor since former mayor Jim Wood retired January 1st following a stroke. KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says the city council must decide whether to appoint a replacement or hold an election.
The Oceanside City Council has until February 7th to decide to put the mayor's seat on the June ballot. At a recent meeting, the council voted to ask the public if they want a new mayor to be appointed or elected.
No, what I'm hearing Councilmember Feller say is that he'd like something in the nature of a survey as to whether the public, the voters of Oceanside, would like to see an election or an appointment.
Oceanside City Clerk Zach Beck says people who spoke at the meeting mostly preferred an election, and since then he's received several public comments.
There are a few people who have requested an appointment, but I would say the overwhelming majority of responses we have received so far are encouraging the City Council to fill the position through an election either in June or November.
However, there's a catch. All 4 City Council members have said they would like to be mayor, but 2 of them, Jerry Kern and Esther Sanchez, are running for a seat on the County Board of Supervisors. That makes them ineligible to run for the position of Oceanside mayor in June. If they fail to make the cut for supervisor, they could run for mayor in November. The council has invited people interested in being appointed mayor to come to their next meeting on January the 24th. The council could wait till late February to decide whether to make an appointment, thus missing the deadline to put the seat on the ballot in June. Alison St. John, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, as the U.S. celebrates Martin Luther King's birthday, we look at the reaction to President Trump's recent comments. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A plan to build 2 massive tunnels to bring water to Southern California might be scaled down. The state is negotiating with water districts to find ways to reduce the $17 billion estimated cost. One option would be to reduce the number of tunnels from 2 to just 1. The project has yet to move forward due to court cases brought by environmental groups. The Imperial Valley's Salton Sea is shrinking at an unprecedented pace this year, and that worries people who live there. That's because the retreating shoreline could be pulling the region toward a public health disaster, In the first of 2 reports, KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson looks at how California's largest lake may be putting people at risk.
When West Shore residents gather these days, the frustration is as obvious as the Salton Sea's low water levels.
This is our life. We're breathing this stuff.
Deborah Bird says her friend has 2 young kids that suffer because of poor air quality.
It makes me sick because they're like our grandchildren, and we have to see them get sick out here.
Bird carries a plastic bag that holds something she says is as common here as large-screen televisions.
It's a breathing machine. And we have to put little bottles of albuterol in here.
She came to the sea more than a decade ago, bought a home and a boat with an eye on the good life.
We pull out like right here, they had a finger like that, and then we go into the sea, and then we go visit people that had docks, and this is 2004, 2005, 2006, and we'd stop and have a drink or have lunch with them and get back in our boat.
But the water isn't deep enough anymore. Bird and her husband sold their boat for half what it was worth.
We have some great projects that have been presented.
West Shore's Mayor Carrie Morrison says the lake level dropped 3/4 of a foot last year in spite of wetter than normal weather.
We are set to see the water level go down much more rapidly than we already have.
That drop is expected to double this year.
And it's already created quite a few problems as far as the spiking of salinity, localized dust storms, and losing likely millions of animals already.
Morrison is rallying residents to stay positive as the state moves ahead with restoration plans, and he's hopeful that includes considerations for people living around California's largest lake.
We need to have our West Shores get some sort of funding, some sort of promise from the state that they're going to help us, because if they don't, we're going to end up in the dust.
Ending up in the dust is a real concern because the region already struggles with poor air quality. State health officials say 23,000 children and adults have asthma in Imperial County. The number of asthma-related emergency visits for every 10,000 residents is close to twice as high as the statewide average. And as West Shore's Principal Richard Pimentel knows, young people are among the most vulnerable.
Oh, bingo!
More than 40 of his students with asthma prescriptions leave their medicine here during the day.
Inhalers with their schedule of when they're supposed to be using them and things like that. So yeah, these are all the inhalers that are registered here.
Pimentel says there are more kids that bring inhalers to school without stopping to register.
It sadly becomes part of our daily lives. The management of inhalers, the phone calls to the parents, hey, your kid is having a hard time breathing.
Pimentel understands the frustration and anger when a young person is incapacitated by an asthma attack, and he expects things to get worse as the Salton Sea shrinks. The retreating sea will expose more lake bed, possibly putting even more dust into the air. Comité Cívico del Valle has been working on environmental justice issues for more than a decade. They're urging state officials to pay attention. And Executive Director Luis Olmedo says it's not just people living on the Salton Sea's shores who are at risk.
Just in our air basin in the Salton Sea, there's upwards of 1.6 million people that live and share this air basin.
That basin includes desert communities like Indio and Palm Springs to the north, and Mexicali across the border to the south.
This is one of our 40 monitors that we have.
Comité Cívico is located in downtown Brawley, and there's an air quality monitor on the roof of their building. John Hernandez shows off what it looks like.
We fabricate everything in-house, a manifold where the air passes through a particle counter.
The group has installed about 40 monitors, and the information is shared on a website that any computer can access. Olmedo wants people to know the risks, even though that risk isn't always visible.
And it's not the dust that we see that is the problem. It's all those other particles that we don't see within that dust.
Olmedo has shared air monitoring with state officials, and he helped bring lawmakers to the county so they could see the situation on the ground. He hopes that seeing the lake and the people living around it will spur lawmakers to fight for the money needed for a solution. That solution is simple for West Shore's resident Deborah Bird.
Put water in the sea, fresh water, salt water. We don't care, just flood the sea with water, you know, that's the whole thing. It's a simple fix, and they just want to keep dragging it out. You know, so none of it's going to help us.
Flooding the Salton Sea is not the approach California is taking. Tomorrow, a look at how the state plans to cope with the receding lake and the dust that could end up in the air. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Work continues on the Central Coast to find people who are missing following last week's mudslides. 4 people are still unaccounted for. So far, 20 people are known to have died in the mudslides that hit the town of Montecito in Santa Barbara County during last week's rainstorm. The same area was impacted by the Thomas Fire last month. More than 500 homes were damaged or destroyed by the mudslides. Cleanup crews are trying to remove enough debris to reopen the 101 freeway, which remains closed. In San Diego County, a side effect of last week's storm is subsiding. Silver Strand State Beach and Imperial Beach have both reopened to swimmers. Both were closed due to sewage flow from the Tijuana River, a regular occurrence when it rains. 2 other locations remain closed, the Tijuana Slough National Wildlife Refuge and Borderfield State Park beaches. After a warm weekend, San Diego County could see more rain later this week. Jeff Cornish has a closer look at tonight's forecast.
Thank you, Susan. We're in pretty good shape out there this week. Until we get to the end of the weekend, we don't want to wish the rain away. We do need it from time to time, and there is some rain in the forecast later on. Now, we do want to give you a heads up that if you have any plans to go swimming or maybe surfing, there will be some high surf, which is often a big draw for the surfing crowd, but be especially careful out there. Some of the swells will occasionally reach something close to 10 feet, not just this evening and tonight, but also Tuesday and Wednesday. At times, over the next 36 to 48 hours, we'll have some very dense fog, primarily offshore. That will occasionally sneak in, though, and impact us near the coast. And again, satellite radar, pretty much quiet right now, but that will be changing in a big way at the end of the week. So here we are with the regional view, very wide region, and you can see Northern California is seeing some rain showers up near, say, Redding. That's still a ways away. Tonight, low clouds and fog, 53 for your low. And then overnight, as we travel a little farther east, Borrego Springs 48, Mount Laguna 41, a little nippy up there in the high ground. Oceanside 45 for your low, Chula Vista 51. We're still mild and still dry Tuesday locally. There are showers on the map, but they're off to the north. A little snow there in the Sierra. That's good news for our skiing friends. As we look at the details for our Tuesday forecast, 68 in San Diego, Low clouds in the morning, some dense fog, especially near the coast, gives way to a much brighter setup in a short time. Borrego Springs on track for 78 degrees. And then late in the week, the rain backs into us from north to south, initially impacting L.A. And then we get hit, too, eventually some morning showers, a little wind as well Friday night, wet, and then Saturday morning showers in the vicinity. Inland areas, a couple of showers Friday and Saturday. We'll look forward to that. Big temperature drop. It gets much cooler out there. Mountains drop to 44. Wind, a couple of showers possible, and then into the deserts, cooling down as well. I'm Jeff Cornish, KPBS News. Back to you, Susan.
Yet another U.S. gold medal gymnast says she too was sexually abused by a team doctor. Simone Biles came forward today on social media, adding her name to a long list of accusers that includes teammates Michaela Maroney, Gabby Douglas, and Allie Raceman. Larry Nassar spent 2 decades as a physician for USA Gymnastics. He was recently sentenced to 60 years in prison for possession of child porn. Nassar is awaiting sentencing after pleading guilty to sexually assaulting several girls. One of America's largest retail brands is changing the way it markets beauty products to girls and young women. CVS says it will stop touching up and editing photos of models in its beauty supply images. That goes for images in stores, websites, and social media. The company says its decision is based on portraying realistic body images. Going forward, images that have not been enhanced will be labeled with a special watermark. Researchers near Sacramento are working with residents of a senior living community to learn more about the power of music and memory. Their work is proving effective in treating brain conditions such as Alzheimer's. PBS station KVIE in Sacramento has the story.
Music and memory go hand in hand. Music can meet you where you are. It can be a pathway to reestablish or reacquire memories and movement that may have been lost over time due to conditions like Parkinson's, dementia, and Alzheimer's. Researchers are now starting to track the mind-music connection through the California Association of Healthcare Facilities and UC Davis Music and Memory Program.
I think there's an increasing recognition now, for example, that people maintain a strong connection with music throughout their lifetimes. There's really good evidence now that music remains a really important aspect of people's lives.
We were approached by the California Association of Healthcare Facilities to participate with them in an effort here in the state of California to get the music and memory program started in a number of nursing homes. And so what we're doing with this is to see, first of all, how are the patients who are getting exposed to this music, how are they reacting to it? What's unique and wonderful about the music and memory program is that after you get it set up, so you've got personalized music for that person.
You want to listen to your music?
It takes very little on the part of the staff to actually allow that patient to put the music on and then to listen to it.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing to watch the difference it has made in people's lives.
You know, there's no doubt that music plays an important role in helping to reduce anxiety before procedures or helping to calm a person. And music is being increasingly used for example, with Parkinson's patients to help them move more fluidly or to help them be able to initiate movements, to help them improve their gait, right, their stride length, things like that. Another place is in speech rehabilitation following stroke.
It's also become more routine for the nurses to look for an alternative first. Find something, try everything first before you start with a medication. That doesn't mean that medication's not important. It's critically important as part of what we may need to do to help somebody to be healthier. But I think it's we do have some focus on, are there alternatives to that? Are there things that we can do first before we start that medication? Or can we start the medication knowing that we're going to do these other things that may improve somebody's condition? I don't think it would be realistic to say something like music is going to cure all things. But it can have an effect, and it can lead to us minimizing the use of medications. And it is about understanding the balance between that, because no one wants to see people drugged. It's about their quality of life.
Whether music therapy treats the whole self or symptoms, I think really, again, depends on what you're trying to treat.
I feel like there's...
To the extent that music helps to set the tone for the broader well-being of a patient, then I think it's incredibly important.
It won't be long before I need somebody to lean on.
One of the distinctive voices in rock and pop music from the 1990s has passed away. Dolores O'Riordan, the lead singer of the Cranberries, died suddenly today in London. Her publicist says she was there to record music. O'Riordan was 46. The cause of death has not been announced. The Cranberries had a string of hits, including the songs Linger and Zombie, and had put out a new album last year. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.